question that one of the students asked is, have you ever encountered other minor groups in your experience as a clinical laboratory scientist in the US?
Yes. Should I answer it candidly or in a professional manner? Okay, thank you for the wonderful question. So I've been working in the blood bank for the past 6 years, and I've been working at a trauma hospital. So we have around 800 bed capacity, and we have experienced so we have sickle patients. So sickle patients, if you're not familiar, they usually need transfusion in their lifetime. And we have patients that every now and then bumabalik-balik siya. And because of that, marami silang transfusion. And we have this patient, she died, I think, 2018. And we have a senior tech na, I think, 75 years old nung nag-start ako. Pero nag-work siya ng part-time. And ang sabi niya that this patient, I've been working on her sample for half of my career. Kasi as in talagang from pagkabata hanggang naging adult na yung patient, which is surprising because it's not very common for sickle patient. So this patient, every time bumabalik siya, we detect a different antibody. So at the end of her life, I think we detected 8 antibodies, and the one that is on and off na lumilitaw is anti-NOPS McCoy, which is very rare, and we didn't detect it in the lab. We need to send the sample to the reference laboratory. We have this thing as well called anti-P1. Yeah, we had some patients with anti-P1. The most common that we usually see would be anti-Cal, tsaka mga RH antibody, especially like sa mga multiparous women, so mga RH antibody. And I thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful answer, ma'am. For the next question, what do you think is the future of antibody screening, or what future technologies would further help its work?
I think like in any other laboratory, microbiology, and with the advent of what happened with the pandemic, I think most of the laboratory are gearing towards molecular testing. And currently, it's not very cost effective to have molecular testing in every laboratory, but maybe in a few decades, it would be a routine test wherein it's easy for us to do immediate genotyping on a patient to see their genotype and to detect what phenotype they could express. So that, but for now, let's go back to the routine. So that's why always your tube method is a strong arsenal when you're working in the laboratory, because kahit na anong advantage at ng mga bagong technology, as long as you always know your basic, mabubuhay kayo. Like, you always go back home, ika nga. Kasi hindi naman lahat ng laboratory advance eh. Some laboratory would still test in tube method. So, always know it by heart, the theory and the practice, and connect it together.
Thank you, ma'am, for that answer. Another question po. What is your message to future medical technologists who would like to specialize in the blood bank section? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. As early as now, I would advise, and this is, again, not for just a medical technology in the blood bank, always have the heart to serve, have the mind that is very technically competent, and a hand that is willing to serve. Kasi I've experienced a lot of students here wherein ang tali-talino, ang galing-galing sa theory, wala naman sa gawa. Meron naman magaling sa gawa, pero kapag tinanong mo yung theory behind it, they cannot answer. So it's very seldom to find a tech who has that specific gumption in their work ethic na alam nila yung ginagawa nila, and then concerned sila sa pasyente nila. At the same time, alam nila yung theory kung bakit nila ginagawa. So I think this is not tooting my own horn or anything. And I think this is one of the reasons why I'm really proud to be coming from the School of Medical Technology and training from the Veterans Memorial Medical Center. Kasi at that point, we were really trained na, okay, magaling kayo sa theory, pero ipakita nyo pagdating sa internship nyo. Kasi by that time, you will be with other schools. And again, nadala ko siya hanggang nag-practice ako and then naging humanitarian aid work. So, always keep that into your hearts. Kasi it's a long journey and it's a very, very beautiful journey. Kaya, yun, aralin ng theory, aralin ang galingan sa practice, and then always have the heart to serve. I thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Another question po from the group. Is there a more automated way po of performing the antibody screening and identification?
Yes. So I'm not promoting any company. There's a company called Ortho Diagnostics. They have this machine called the Ortho Vision. So what this does, okay. Okay, I'm going to share this quickly. Okay, so this is the OrthoVision, and this was the one we were using. Yeah. Yeah. So ang ginagawa nito, imbes na magpapipette na kayo, kasi di ba sa laboratory, and this only uses the gel method, this doesn't use the tube method. So this machine, imbes na ikaw yung magpapipette pa ng mga reagents mo, tsaka mag-incubate, tsaka mag-spin. Ay? Ayun naman. Naka-share ba? Naka-share?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Ayun, na-trauma na ako. Okay, so eto, imbes na kayo magpapipette, ilalagay nyo lang lahat ng reagents nyo dyan, tsaka yung mga gel cards na pinakita ko kanina. And then siya na yung magpapipette doon sa gel cards mo, siya na yung mag-incubate, siya na yung mag-spin, tapos siya na rin yung mag-read. Ang reading niya, pinipicture niya yung cards. And then siya na yung mag-interpret. And usually, mga laboratories here, they're connected with LIS, Laboratory Information System. So whatever the result here na, natatransmit dun sa information system nyo sa lab. So that's one. So here you can do, basically, kung may reagent ka, pwede mong isalpak dyan, i-validate mo lang, and then it will do all the testing. Then again, minsan masyado siyang sensitive. It will detect even the ones that you don't want to detect. So you need to go back to tube testing. Okay? Anything else I can share with?
Yes, ma'am. One of the audience asked, do you perform antibody screening on all the donors?
No. Kasi it doesn't matter naman, like here sa reference laboratories, meron na silang, they can easily do apheresis. So hiwalay ng leukoreduced na red cells ang nabibigay nila. And since there's not much presence ng plasma sa red cells, therefore, if in case may positive sila antibody, it will not be very much clinically significant. Pero pagkakaalam ko, dun sa reference lab na kinukuha na namin ng dugo, they try to screen the donors for different antigens para alam nila kung negative sa ganitong antigen, para if in case maghanap sa ibang hospital, nasa network kasi sila dito. So, pwedeng ilalagay lang sa database yung donor na if in case very rare yung donor, halimbawa, donor with, just for example lang ha, donor na RH null, yung as in wala siyang RH na antigen. So ilalagay nila sa database kasi it's very, very few people amongst the world na meron nun. So ilalagay nila sa database. So again, the antibody screen is not that essential naman sa donor. Pero again, probably sa ibang reference laboratory, pero dun sa kinukuha na namin, from what I remember, hindi. I thank you.
Thank you. Next question. what are the challenges of doing antibody identification?
Very good question. So the usual challenge here is if in case walang pattern. Kasi there's specific drugs which we didn't discuss. There's this specific drug we're in. Binibigay siya sa mga multiple myeloma patients. It's called Darzalex or Dara or daratumumab. So when you do all your testing sa AHG phase, magpa-positive siya. So yun yung isang challenge. You need to prove na the positive reaction is because of this drug. Another challenge is if you have a non-specific antibody, like if you have a warm antibody or a non-specific cold. Kasi lahat ng cells mo magpa-positive, wherein yung kaninang binigay kong example, specific pattern. Kapag may pattern, maganda. Like, buhay ang lahat. Like, party-party lang kayo kasi mabilis siya i-detect. Kapag hindi siya specific na pattern at positive siya sa lahat, you need to prove na hindi siya itong antibody, hindi siya ganito, hindi siya. Tapos kailangan mo na naman i-prove. So, maraming gawaan. And as you can see, yung testing, di ba, you need to incubate it for 15 minutes sa gel and then you spin for another 10. So, that's 25 minutes. So, every test na kung gusto mong i-prove or disprove yung isang antibody, it's about 30 minutes. So, it would take you more than an hour for sure. So when we have patients like that, usually the ones going sa OR, we advise for the clinicians to give us a pre-transfusion sample before the procedure, like a day before, para kapag may positive siyang antibody screen, ma-work up na namin beforehand. And then again, there's times wherein hindi nila nagagawa and then yung patient mo nasa OR na, and then ngayon mo lang tinetest yung pasyente, nakabukas na yung pasyente sa OR, and then nag-positive ng antibody screen, and then they're calling for blood, then you cannot do anything because you need to identify which blood antibody is present before you give any blood pa. Otherwise, madiding kayo ng mga inspectors nyo like AABB and CAP. So, yeah. So, yun yung isang challenge, which hopefully when mapunta na kayo sa laboratory, maalala nyo, itong araw na ito, February 17, matulog-tulog na ako. Sabi ni Miss Julie, ay oo, ito yung cold antibody, ito yung gamot. So, kayang-kaya ko to kasi RICO 2023 ako. I thank you. Any more questions?
Another question po, ma'am.
Okay.
If someone is positive for the antibodies discussed and needs a donor blood, do we need to identify the donor's blood too or just cross-match it?
Yes. Yes. So, remember kanina sinasabi ko, yung mga warm-reacting na antibodies, so yun yung mga hanapan mo siya ng specific na antigen. So, yung the Phi, the KELs, the KIDs, the RHs, kailangan mong mag-screen ng donor or pwede kang umorder sa reference lab mo. So, ito yung exciting pa. Once na nag-practice ako dito, doon ko lang talaga nakita. Kasi di ba when we were practicing sa Philippines, ang alam nyo lang yung A for Azul, B for Bilao, and then the anti-D, and then yun lang, ABORH. Pagdating ko here, I witnessed the plethora of all the antibody anti-sera na pwede mong gamitin. So we have anti-sera, like the hospital I was working, may anti-sera kami sa lahat ng RH, sa C, sa E, sa big C, little e, Duffy, Lewis, MNS. So we can really test blood units. And if case it worst comes to worst, na yung patient nyo has more than one antibody na mahirap mag-screen, then you order from your reference laboratory. So it's also like an inside joke sa laboratory. Like for example, nag-positive sa KEL. I'll share you something. So this is also a technique that you can use when you're in the laboratory. You have 11 cells. So if this would give you the percentage and a rough estimate kung ilan yung magpa-positive na antigen kapag nag-screen ka ng units. For example, naghahanap ka ng KEL na negative na antigen kasi your patient has a positive anti-KEL. So given by this, you can say that if you screen for 10, dalawa magpa-positive na units. Okay? Kapag naman sa C, nag-screen ka ng 10, around 3 or 4 magpa-positive. So that's one thing you can use when you're screening for donor units. Kasi you don't want to screen like 20 agad kasi hindi siya cost-effective. So what we usually do, if in case kel lang siya, so 2 out of 10, mag-screen kami ng mga 2 or 4 kasi it's not very common naman. If you have more than 1 antibody, mag-screen ka muna dun sa pinaka mahirap mong hanapin. And then kung sino yung magne-negative doon, tsaka mo siya i-test doon sa susunod na antigen. Like for example, yung patient natin kanina, di ba may E tsaka may kel. So ang E, 2 or 3 cell usually nagpa-positive. Mag-screen ka ng mga 6 na units for big E. So 6 na yon, siguro 4 magne-negative. And then yung 4 na negative, screen mo naman siya for the kel antigen. So usually 4 negative din or 3. So you don't test all together kasi hindi siya ganun ka-cost effective. Masasayang lang yung anti-sera nyo. I thank you.
Thank you as well. For the last question, one of the audience asked, what is your view about Filipino medical technologists working abroad? What would you advise people such as us and how to venture out working outside the country?
Okay. Thank you for the beautiful question. I would put a disclaimer first. Before you aim for abroad, practice in our country first. Try to serve in our country for at least 2 to 3 years. Advantage for that is you're going to be more technically competent. At the same time, you know the experience na talagang from the start, hindi yung biglang taas agad. Filipino medical technologist, wala akong masabi. Here in the US, wherever ako magpuntang lab, there's always a Filipino medtech. And I think like in any other profession, may magaling, may hindi magaling. Pero mas litaw yung galing kadami ng mga Filipino medtechs based on my experience. It's because I think yung curriculum natin was something na talagang in-enhance ng mga universities for us to be globally competent. And at the same time, we have an advantage kasi we're from a tropical country. So this is like an example. So sa parasitology, diba? So we have an experience wherein sa parasitology natin, dyan nakita natin lahat ng worms tsaka ng mga parasites. So when I worked here, part-time ako sa microbiology, we have, what do you call that? My CAP na unknown for competency. And then I think it was a microfilaria. And yung mga kasamahan ko, they only know it by theory. They don't know it by practice. And since I work in Africa, I saw a few of them. So sabi nung supervisor, like, let Julie look at that first and then ask her opinion. So like it helps kasi may advantage tayo. And again, we have a very good vernacular of the English language aside from other countries na nagpa-practice din dito. So yeah, so serve your country first. Try to equip yourself with the knowledge and the techniques para pagdating nyo here, hindi lang puro pagiging RICO 2023 ang dala nyo. Dala nyo ang 8 billion Filipinos. Diba? Sabi nga ni Catriona. So, always be proud, but at the same time, always be grounded as well na you have mentors na tumulong sa inyo and again, in your little ways, give back not only to your patients, to your colleagues, to your profession. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Julie, for passionately answering our questions and everyone for actively participating in today's webinar.
Thanks for the questions.